Welcome, kind listener. My name is Gentle Fox. You may not know me now, but by the end of this masterpiece, you will, and I trust you'll think of me as an old friend. What you'll be hearing tonight is an excerpt from our Twitch stream. I hope you'll enjoy that extra ambiance and my soft-spoken voice as we explore Leo Tolstoy's classic, Anna Karenina. Chapter 9. At 4 o'clock, feeling his heart pounding, Levine got out of a cab at the zoological garden and walked down the path towards the sledging hills and the skating rink. Knowing for certain that he would find her there because he had seen the Sherbatskys' carriage at the entrance. It was a clear, frosty day. At the entrance stood rows of carriages, sleighs, cabbies, mounted police. Proper folk, their hats gleaming in the sun, swarmed by the gate and along the cleared paths, among little Russian cottages with fretwork eaves and ridges. The old curly-headed birches in the garden, all their branches hung with snow, seemed to be decked out in new, festive garments. He walked down the path toward the skating rink and said to himself, "Mustn't be excited. Must keep calm. What are you doing? What's the matter with you? Quiet, stupid." He spoke to his heart, and the more he tried to calm himself, the more breathless he became. An acquaintance went by and called out to him, but Levine did not even recognize who it was. He came to the hills where there was a clanking of chains, towing sledges up and down, the clatter of descending sledges, and the sound of merry voices. He walked on a few more steps, and before him opened the skating rink, and at once, among all the skaters, he recognized her. He knew she was there by the joy that overwhelmed his heart. She stood at the other end of the rink talking to a lady. There seemed to be nothing very special in her dress, nor in her pose, but for Levine she was as easy to recognize in that crowd as a rose among nettles. Everything was lit up by her. She was the smile that brightened everything around. Could I really step down there on the ice and go over to her? The place where she stood seemed to him unapproachably holy, and there was a moment when he almost went away. He was so filled with awe. Making an effort, he reasoned that all sorts of people were walking near her, and that he might have come to skate there himself. He stepped down, trying not to look long at her, as if she were the sun. Yet he saw her like the sun even without looking. On that day of the week and at that hour of the day, people of the same circle, all acquaintances, gathered on the ice. Here there were expert skaters who showed off their art, and learners leaning on chairs, moving timidly and clumsily, and young boys and old people who skated for hygienic purposes. To Levine they all seemed chosen and lucky because they were there close to her. It seemed that with perfect equanimity the skaters went ahead, came abreast of her, even talked to her, and enjoyed themselves quite independently of her, taking advantage of the excellent ice and good weather. Nikolai Sherbatsky, Kitty's cousin, in a short jacket and narrow trousers, was sitting on a bench with his skates on. Seeing Levine, she called out to him. "Ah, the foremost Russian skater. Been here long? The ice is excellent. Put your skates on." "I don't have any skates," Levine replied, surprised at this boldness and casualness in her presence, and not losing sight of her for a moment, though he was not looking at her. He felt the sun approach him. She was turning a corner. Her slender feet had a blunt ankle in their high boots, and with evident timidity was skating towards him. Desperately swinging his arms and crouching low, a boy in Russian dress was overtaking her. She skated not quite steadily, taking her hands out of a small muff hanging from a cord. She held them ready, and looking at Levine, whom she had recognized, smiled at him and at her own fear. When she finished the turn, She pushed herself off with a springy little foot and glided right up to Sherbatsky. Holding on to him and smiling, she nodded to Levine. She was more beautiful than he had imagined her. When he thought of her, he could vividly picture Oliver to himself, especially the loveliness of that small, fair head, with its expression of a child's brightness and kindness, set so easily on her shapely, girlish shoulders. In this childlike expression of her face, combined with the slender beauty of her figure, lay her special loveliness, which he remembered well. But what was always striking in her like something unexpected was the look in her eyes, meek, calm, and truthful, and especially her smile, which always transported Levine into a magic world where he felt softened and moved to tenderness, as he could remember himself being on rare days in his early childhood. "Have you been here long?" she said, giving him her hand. "Thank you," she added, as he picked up the handkerchief that had fallen out of her muff. "I? Not long. I came yesterday. Today, I mean," replied Levine, not quite understanding her question in his excitement. "I was going to call on you," he said, and remembering at once with what intention he was looking on for her, he became embarrassed and blushed. "I didn't know you skated, and skated so well." She looked at him attentively, as if wishing to understand the reason for his embarrassment. "Your praise is to be valued. There's a tradition here of you being an excellent skater," she said, flicking off with her small black-gloved hand the needles of hoarfrost that had fallen on her muff. "Yes, I used to be a passionate skater. I wanted to achieve perfection." "It seems you do everything passionately," she said, smiling. "I do so want to see you skate. Put on some skates and let's skate together." "Skate together? Can it be possible?" thought Levine, looking at her. "I'll put them on at once," he said, and he went to put on some skates. "You haven't been here for a long time, sir," said the skating attendant as he supported his foot, tightening the screw on the heel. "There have been no experts among the gentlemen since you left. Will that be all right?" he asked, tightening the strap. All right. Hurry up, please," Levine replied, barely repressing the smile of happiness that involuntarily appeared on his face. "Yes," he thought, "this is life. This is happiness. Together," she said. "Let's skate together." Shall I tell her now? But that's why I'm afraid to tell her, because I'm happy now, happy at least in hopes, and then... But I must. Away, weakness. Levine stood up and took his coat off, and taking a run on the rough ice near the shed, raced out onto the smooth ice and glided effortlessly, speeding up, slowing down, and directing his course as if by will alone. He approached her timidly, but again her smile set him at ease. She gave him her hand, and they set off together, increasing their speed, and the faster they went, the tighter she held on to his arm. "With you I learn quicker. For some reason I have confidence in you," she said to him. "And I have confidence in myself when you lit on my arm," he said, but at once felt afraid of what he had said and blushed. Indeed, as soon as he uttered those words, her face lost all its gentleness, as if the sun had suddenly gone behind a cloud, and Levine recognized the familiar play of her face that indicated the effort of thought. A little wrinkle swelled on her smooth forehead. "Has anything unpleasant happened to you? Though I have no right to ask," he said quickly. "Why, no. Nothing unpleasant has happened," she answered coldly, and added at once, "Have you seen Mademoiselle Lidon?" "Not yet." "Go over to her. She likes you so much." "What's this? I've upset her. Lord help me," thought Levine, and he raced over to the old Frenchwoman with gray curls, who was sitting on a bench, smiling and showing her false teeth. She greeted him like an old friend. "So we're getting bigger," she said to him, glancing in Kitty's direction. "And older. Tiny Bear has grown up." The Frenchwoman went on laughing, and she reminded him of his joke about the three girls whom he used to call the three bears from the English tale. Remember how you used to say it? He decidedly did not remember, but for 10 years she'd been laughing over this joke and enjoying it. Well, go and skate. Our Kitty's become a good skater, hasn't she? When Levine again raced up to Kitty, her face was no longer stern. The look in her eyes was as truthful and gentle as ever, but it seemed to Levine that her gentleness had a special, deliberately calm tone, and he felt sad. After talking about her old governess and her quirks, she asked him about his life. "Is it really not boring for you in the country during the winter?" she said. "No, it's not boring. I'm very busy," he said, sensing that she was subjecting him to her calm tone, which he would be unable to get out of, just as it happened at the beginning of the winter. "Have you come for long?" Kitty asked him. "I don't know," he replied, not thinking of what he was saying. It occurred to him that if he yielded again to this tone of calm friendship, he would again leave without having decided anything, and he decided to rebel. "Why don't you know?" "I don't know. That depends on you," he said, and at once was horrified at his words. She did not hear his words, or did not wish to hear, but seemed to stumble, tapped her foot twice, and hurriedly skated away from him. She scooted over to Mademoiselle Linon, said something to her, and went to the shed where the ladies took off their skates. "My God, what have I done? Oh, God, help me, teach me," Levine said, praying, and at the same time feeling a need for strong movement. He speeded up, cutting outer and inner circles. Just then one of the young men, the best of the new skaters, with skates on and a cigarette in his mouth, came out of the coffee room and, taking a short run, went down the steps on his skates, clattering and jumping. He flew down and, not even changing the free position of his arms, glided away over the ice. "Oh, that's a new stunt," said Levine, and immediately ran up to try it. "Don't hurt yourself. It takes practice," Nikolai Sherbatsky called out to him. Levine got up on the landing, took as much of a run as he could, and raced down, balancing himself with his arms in this unpracticed movement. On the last step, he caught on something, but barely touching the ice with his hand, he made a strong movement, righted himself, and laughed, skating on. "A nice man, a dear man," Kitty thought just then, coming out of the shed with Mademoiselle Linon and looking at him with a smile of gentle tenderness, as at a beloved brother. "And can it be I'm to blame? Can it be I did something bad? Coquettishness, they say. I know it's not him I love, but even so it's fun to be with him. And he's so nice. Only why did he say that?" she thought. When he saw Kitty leaving and her mother meeting her on the steps, Levine, flushed after such quick movement, stopped and considered. He took off his skates and caught up with their mother and daughter at the exit from the garden. "Very glad to see you," said the princess. "We receive on Thursdays, as usual." "Today, then?" "We shall be very glad to see you," the princess said dryly. This dryness upset Kitty, and she could not hold back the wish to smooth over her mother's coldness. She turned her head and said with a smile, "See you soon." At that moment, Stepan Arkadyevitch, his hat cocked, his face and eyes shining, came into the garden with a merrily triumphant look. But coming up to his mother-in-law, he answered her questions about Dolly's health with a mournful, guilty face. Having spoken softly and glumly to her, he straightened up and took Levine's arm. "Well, then, shall we go?" he asked. "I kept thinking about you, and I'm very, very glad you've come," he said, looking into his eyes with a significant air. Let's go," replied the happy Levine, still hearing the sound of the voice saying, "See you soon," and picturing the smile with which it had been said. "To the Anglia or the Hermitage?" "It makes no difference to me." "To the Anglia, then," said Stepan Arkadyevitch, choosing the Anglia because he owed more in the Anglia than in the Hermitage. He therefore considered it not nice to avoid that hotel. "Do you have a cab?" "Excellent, because I dismissed my carriage." The friends were silent all the way. Levin thought about the meaning of that change in Kitty's face, and first assured himself that there was hope, then fell into despair and saw clearly that his hope was mad, and yet he felt himself quite a different man, not like the one he had been before. Smile and the words, "See you soon." Stepan Arkadyevitch devised the dinner menu on the way. "You do like turbot," he said to Levin as they drove up. "What?" asked Levin. "Turbot? Yes, I'm terribly fond of turbot."